The salvage yard floated in the darkness between stars like a graveyard for dreams. Broken ships drifted in slow circles, held in place by magnetic anchors. Some were small, no bigger than houses. Others were massive, their hulls torn open by weapons that had killed everyone inside. Park Do-hyun had worked here for 6 years, and he had learned to stop thinking about the people who once lived in these metal corpses. He was human. In the galaxy, that meant very little. Humans had joined the wider universe only 80 years ago, and the older species looked at them the way a grown man looks at a child playing with tools, useful for simple work, good with their hands, but not smart enough for the important things, not worthy of respect. Do-hyun did not argue with this. He simply worked. He fixed engines that alien engineers had declared dead. He rewired systems that computers said were beyond saving. He had a gift for machines. He could feel where they hurt, like a doctor feeling for a broken bone. The other workers called him the human who talks to ships, and they meant it as an insult. Do-hyun took it as a compliment. The salvage station orbited a planet called Veloth. It was a trading world, a place where dozens of species came to buy, sell, and cheat each other. The station master was a creature named Grath, a reptilian being with scales the color of rust and eyes that never blinked. Grath was not cruel, but he was not kind either. He ran the salvage yard like a factory, and workers were just another kind of machine to him. On the day everything changed, Do-hyun was eating his lunch alone in the observation room. Through the thick glass, he could see the ships waiting to be torn apart. He chewed his rice slowly and watched the stars. He often wondered what it would be like to fly out there, to see worlds no human had ever visited. But workers like him did not get ships. Workers like him got small rooms and smaller paychecks, and the privilege of watching others chase their dreams. The alarm rang 3 times. That meant a new arrival. Do-hyun finished his food and walked to the main dock. A crowd had gathered, which was unusual. Most salvage arrivals were boring. But this time, even Grath had come to watch. The ship being towed into the yard was unlike anything Do-hyun had ever seen. It was large, perhaps 300 meters long. But that was not what made it special. The shape was wrong. No, not wrong. Different. Where most ships looked like they had been built for war or for carrying cargo, this one looked like it had been built for beauty. The hull curved in graceful lines, like a bird frozen in mid-flight. The metal was dark, silver, almost black in places, and covered with patterns that might have been decoration or might have been writing. Even damaged, even scarred by weapons fire and years of neglect, it was the most beautiful thing Do-hyun had ever seen. "What is that?" someone asked. Grath made a sound that might have been a laugh. "That is trash. Expensive trash, but trash. The Veil of Autumn, Solarian royal ship, been floating dead for 12 years. 3 salvage companies have tried to get it running. All failed. Now, it comes to us, to be cut into pieces." Do-hyun could not look away from the ship. There was something about it. A feeling, like the ship was looking back at him. "Who did it belong to?" he asked. Grath turned his unblinking eyes toward the human. "The Empress, Yuna of the Solarian Dominion. She disappeared when the Civil War ended. Most think she died on that ship. Some think she ran away. Does not matter. Her empire is gone. Her people are scattered. And her ship is junk." The workers began to leave. The show was over. Soon the cutting teams would arrive to begin tearing the beautiful thing apart. But Do-hyun stayed. He stood at the window for a long time, watching the ship drift into its holding position. The lights on the station made shadows move across its hull. And for a moment, he could imagine what it must have looked like when it was alive, when its engines burned bright and its halls were filled with people. He made a decision. The next morning, Do-hyun went to Grath's office. The reptilian was busy with paperwork, his clawed fingers tapping on a screen. "What do you want, human?" The Solarian ship. The Veil of Autumn. I want to work on it. Grath stopped tapping. His head turned slowly, the way a predator turns toward unexpected prey. You want to work on it? Why? I think I can fix it. The silence stretched. Then Grath laughed. It was an ugly sound, like rocks grinding together. 3 teams have tried. Engineers with 100 years of experience. Computers that can think faster than any living brain. All failed. And you, a human mechanic who fixes broken heaters and worn-out thrusters, you think you can succeed? Yes. Grath studied him. Do-hyun did not look away. He had learned long ago that looking away was how you lost. Fine, Grath said at last. You can have it. Work on it in your free time. I will give you 6 months. If you cannot get it running, we cut it apart, and you go back to fixing toilets. If you somehow succeed, you get 10% of the sale price. Deal? Deal. Do-hyun walked to the ship that afternoon. Up close, it was even more impressive. The airlock was sealed, but he found a maintenance hatch on the lower hull. It took him 3 hours to cut through the rust and force it open. Inside, the ship was dark and cold. His flashlight made a small circle of light in the endless black. The air smelled old, like a room that had been closed for too many years. But the walls were smooth, the corridors wide, and even covered in dust. He could see the care that had gone into building this place. He walked deeper into the ship, past empty rooms, past broken screens, past a dining hall where chairs still sat around a long table, waiting for guests who would never come. Finally, he reached the engine room. It was massive. The main reactor sat in the center like a sleeping heart. Cables and pipes spread out from it in all directions. Everything was still. Everything was silent. Do-hyun sat down on the cold floor. He looked at the dead machine in front of him. Hello, he said softly. My name is Do-hyun. I am here to help you. The ship did not answer. But somewhere in the darkness, something listened. Do-hyun returned to the ship every day after his regular work ended. He brought tools, food, and a small lamp that he set up in the engine room. The other workers thought he was crazy. They whispered about the human who spent his nights talking to a dead ship. Do-hyun did not care. He had found something worth his time, and he would not let it go. The first week, he simply walked through the ship and made notes. He mapped the corridors. He counted the rooms. He found storage areas filled with supplies that had survived 12 years without rotting, sealed in special containers. He found a medical bay with beds that could heal almost any wound. He found a library with thousands of books stored in crystal chips. And he found the bridge. It was at the top of the ship, behind 3 heavy doors that refused to open. Do-hyun did not force them. He had learned that forcing things usually broke them. Instead, he went back to the engine room and started there. The reactor was not damaged. That was the first surprise. When salvage teams had examined the ship before, they had assumed the power core was destroyed. But Do-hyun spent 3 days checking every connection, every cable, every tiny piece of machinery. Nothing was broken. Everything was simply turned off. Not broken. Locked. He sat back and thought about this. A ship did not lock itself. Someone had done this on purpose. Someone had wanted the ship to sleep. Why? He asked, the empty room. Why would anyone do this? The answer came from nowhere and everywhere at once. To protect her. Do-hyun jumped to his feet. His heart beat fast. The voice had been soft, like wind through leaves, but it had come from the ship itself. Who is there? He asked. Silence. He waited. Minutes passed. Nothing happened. But he knew what he had heard. The ship had spoken to him. Over the next month, Do-hyun worked harder than he had ever worked before. He did not try to force the ship awake. Instead, he repaired the small things. A broken light in a hallway. a water pipe that had cracked from the cold, a ventilation fan that had stopped spinning. He fixed them all, one by one, taking his time, doing the work properly. And slowly, the ship began to trust him. The voice came again during his third week. He was repairing a communication panel when the soft sound filled the room. "You are different from the others." This time, Do-hyun did not jump. He kept working, his hands steady. "Different how?" he asked. "The others came with machines. They tried to force me open. They wanted to take what was inside. You come alone. You fix what is broken. You ask for nothing. I am a mechanic. Fixing things is what I do. Why this ship? There are many others in the yard. Easier ones. Ones that would bring you more money." Do-hyun thought about the question. He put down his tools and looked up at the ceiling, as if he could see the voice that spoke to him. "Because you are beautiful," he said simply. "And because no one else cared enough to try." The ship was quiet for a long time. Then, so softly he almost missed it, she said, "My name." From that day forward, Isul spoke to him often. She told him about the ship, about its history, about the people who had lived here. The Veil of Autumn had been built 200 years ago as a gift for the Solarian royal family. It was not a warship, though it could defend itself. It was a home, a place where the rulers could escape from the weight of their duties and simply live. The last person to command the ship had been Empress Yuna. She was young when the war began, Isul said. Only 23. Her father had just died. Her brothers fought each other for the throne. Generals chose sides. Planets burned. She tried to stop it, but no one listened to her. She was just a girl to them. Just a symbol. "What happened to her?" Do-hyun asked. "The war ended badly. Her brothers killed each other. The generals divided the empire among themselves. They came for her next. She was the last of the royal bloodline. As long as she lived, she was a threat to their power. So she ran? She had no choice. We fled together, she and I, and a small crew, but they followed us, caught us near the edge of known space, fired on us until our shields failed. I knew we could not escape, so I did the only thing I could do. I put her to sleep and shut myself down. If the ship appeared dead, perhaps they would leave us alone." Do-hyun felt cold. "Put her to sleep? You mean she is still here?" "Yes." "Where?" Isul did not answer immediately. Do-hyun could feel her hesitation, like a person deciding whether to share a secret. "There is a room behind the bridge. A hidden chamber. She sleeps there. Frozen in time. She has been sleeping for 12 years, waiting for someone to wake her. Why have you not woken her yourself?" "Because I am afraid. The galaxy has changed. Her enemies still rule. If she wakes, they will find her. They will kill her. I thought it was better to let her sleep forever than to wake her to death." Do-hyun stood up. His legs were stiff from sitting on the cold floor, but he barely noticed. "That is not your choice to make," he said quietly. "She deserves to decide for herself. I round over round. She deserves to decide for herself. And if she dies, then she dies free. That is better than sleeping forever in a prison, even a prison made of love." Isul was silent for a very long time. The lights in the room flickered. Just once. "You really are different," she said. "Most people would want to keep her sleeping. A frozen empress is valuable. A bargaining chip. A prize. But you want to set her free, even if it means losing her. I do not want to own her. I want to help her." The ship hummed. Somewhere deep inside, systems that had been dead for 12 years began to wake. Lights came on in the hallways. Air began to flow through the vents. The great reactor in the engine room started to glow with soft blue light. "Then help her," Isul said. "But know this, human. If you hurt her, I will kill you myself." Do-hyun smiled. It was the first real smile he had felt in years. "Fair enough," he said. And he began to walk toward the bridge, toward the hidden room, toward the sleeping queen who had been waiting 12 years for someone brave enough to wake her. The doors to the bridge opened for Do-hyun without resistance. Lee-seul had decided to trust him, and with that trust came access to every part of the ship. He walked through the command center slowly, taking in the sight. The bridge was round, with large windows that looked out at the stars. Control panels, curved around a central chair that was clearly meant for royalty. Everything was covered in dust, but underneath, the materials were rich and fine. Behind the main chair, hidden in the wall, was a door that had no handle. Do-hyun approached it and waited. "Are you sure?" Lee-seul asked. "Yes." The door slid open. The room beyond was small and cold. Blue light filled the space, coming from a single object in the center. It was a pod, made of glass and metal, about 2 meters long, shaped like a seed. Inside, frozen in perfect stillness, was a woman. Do-hyun stepped closer. His breath made clouds in the freezing air. She looked young, perhaps in her mid-20s. Her hair was long and black, spread around her head like a dark halo. Her face was calm, peaceful, as if she was only sleeping and might wake at any moment. She wore a simple white dress, not the grand robes he had expected from an empress. "She looks so young," he said. "She was young. She still is." The cryopod stops time completely. To her, no time has passed since the day she went to sleep. Do-hyun looked at the woman for a long time. He thought about what Lee-seul had told him. A girl who had lost her father. A young empress who had watched her brothers destroy each other. A queen without a kingdom, running through space with enemies at her back. "Not yet," he said finally. Lee-seul sounded surprised. "Not yet? I thought you wanted to wake her." "I do. But not like this. She has been asleep for 12 years. When she wakes, she will be confused, scared, probably angry. She will look around and see a broken ship, a stranger, and nothing else. I want to give her something better than that." "What do you mean?" Do-hyun turned and walked out of the room. "I mean, I am going to fix this ship properly. Every broken light, every damaged system, every small thing that shows neglect. When she opens her eyes, I want her to see that someone cared, that she was not forgotten. That could take months. Then it takes months." And so began the longest and hardest work of Do-hyun's life. He stopped taking other jobs at the salvage yard. Grath complained. But Do-hyun used his saved money to pay for the time. Every day, from morning until night, he worked on the ship. He cleaned the corridors. He repaired the lights. He fixed the water systems and the air recyclers and the heating units. He polished the floors until they shined. The other workers watched him with confusion. They could not understand why a human would work so hard for a ship that might never fly again. Some thought he had gone mad. Others thought he was trying to steal something valuable. None of them guessed the truth. Lee-seul watched him too. At first, she only observed. But as the weeks passed, she began to help. She told him which systems needed the most attention. She guided him to hidden storage rooms filled with replacement parts. She played music through the ship's speakers while he worked. Soft Solarian melodies that had not been heard in 12 years. "You work like no one I have ever seen," she said one evening. Do-hyun was lying under a control panel, replacing damaged wires. His hands were cut, and his back hurt. But he did not stop. "I like working," he said. "It is simple. You see a problem. You fix it. The universe makes more sense when you can fix things." "Is that why you became a mechanic?" "Partly. Also because I was not good at anything else. In school, I was average. Not smart enough to be a scientist. Not strong enough to be a soldier. Not charming enough to be a merchant. But I could fix things. So that is what I did. Do you regret it?" He thought about the question. "No. I have seen the galaxy. Maybe not the pretty parts, but I have seen it. I have met hundreds of different species. I have worked on ships that fly between stars. That is more than most humans ever get. But you are alone. It was not a question. Do-hyun stopped working. He lay there in the darkness, under the panel, and looked at the wires above his head. Yes, he said. I am alone. Does it bother you? Sometimes. But being alone is not the worst thing. Being with people who do not see you, that is worse. At least when I am alone, I do not have to pretend to be something I am not. Isul was quiet for a moment. Then she said, she was alone too. Even when she was surrounded by servants and guards and advisors. They saw the crown, not the person. She told me once that I was her only real friend, an AI and an empress. Strange friendship. Is it? We both knew what it was like to be useful to everyone and precious to no one. She did not treat me like a machine. I did not treat her like a symbol. We just treated each other like people. Do-hyun smiled in the darkness. I think I would have liked her. I think she will like you too. The months passed. Do-hyun lost track of time. His world became the ship, its corridors and rooms, its systems and secrets. He learned every inch of the veil of autumn. He knew where the walls creaked and where the floors were slightly uneven. He knew which doors stuck and which windows had the best view of the stars. And as he worked, he began to do something strange. He began to fix things that did not need fixing. He found a music player in a small room that had clearly belonged to a child. It was broken. There was no reason to repair it. The child who had owned it was probably dead. But Do-hyun fixed it anyway. He cleaned it, replaced the broken parts, and left it on the shelf where he had found it. He found a garden room where plants had once grown under artificial sunlight. Everything was dead, brown and withered. He could not bring the plants back to life, but he cleaned the room, fixed the lights, and planted new seeds that he bought from a trader on the station. He found a cracked viewport in the observation deck. It did not leak. It was not dangerous. But he spent 3 days replacing the glass, piece by piece, until the view of the stars was perfect again. Why do you do these things? Isul asked. Do-hyun stood in the observation deck, looking at the stars through the new glass. Because she will see them, he said. When she wakes up, she will walk through these halls, and she will see that someone fixed the music player her child loved, that someone planted new flowers where her garden died, that someone cared about the view from her favorite window. And maybe, just maybe, that will be enough to make her want to keep living. Isul did not respond. But the lights in the room grew warmer, and the music playing softly through the speakers changed to something gentle and sad and beautiful. Outside, the stars burned on, indifferent to the small human and the sleeping ship and the frozen queen who waited for the day when she would finally open her eyes. 6 months had passed since Do-hyun first stepped onto the veil of autumn. The ship was transformed. Lights glowed warmly in every corridor. The air smelled clean and fresh. Systems hummed with quiet power. The great reactor burned steady and strong, ready to carry the vessel wherever it needed to go. Do-hyun stood in the engine room, looking at his work. His hands were rough with calluses. His clothes were stained with oil and dust. He had lost weight from working too much and eating too little. But for the first time in years, he felt something like pride. It is time, Isul said. He nodded slowly. I know. Are you afraid? Yes. She might hate me. She might think I am a thief or an enemy. She might kill me the moment she wakes up. She might. But you have done everything you could. The rest is up to her. Do-hyun walked to the hidden room behind the bridge. The cryopod still glowed with blue light. The woman inside still frozen, in perfect sleep. He had visited her many times over the past months. Sometimes he talked to her, telling her about his day, about the repairs he had made, about the small victories and frustrations of bringing a dead ship back to life. She never answered. Of course. But somehow, he felt she was listening. "Good morning," he said softly. "I am sorry it took so long, but I wanted everything to be ready for you." He turned to the control panel beside the pod. Izul had explained the process to him many times. It was simple. Press 3 buttons in the right order. Wait 15 minutes for the warming cycle. Then the pod would open, and the woman inside would wake. His hand hovered over the first button. "Whatever happens," Izul said. "Thank you for believing in us when no one else did." Do-hyun pressed the buttons. The blue light changed to gold. A soft hum filled the room. Frost began to melt on the glass, running down in small rivers. Do-hyun stepped back and waited. 15 minutes felt like 15 hours. He watched the woman's face for any sign of movement. Nothing happened. Then, just as he was starting to worry that something had gone wrong, her hand twitched. Her eyes opened. For a moment, she simply stared at the ceiling. Her eyes were dark brown, almost black, and filled with confusion. Then, she turned her head and saw Do-hyun. Everything happened very fast. The pod lid flew open. The woman moved like water, flowing out of the pod and onto her feet in one smooth motion. Her hand shot to her side, where a blade had been hidden in the folds of her dress. The blade was at Do-hyun's throat before he could even raise his hands. "Who are you?" she demanded. Her voice was hoarse from 12 years of silence, but the steel in it was unmistakable. "Where am I? What have you done to my ship?" Do-hyun did not move. He could feel the blade against his skin, cold and sharp. One small motion would end his life. "My name is Park Do-hyun," he said slowly. "I am a mechanic. I have spent the last 6 months repairing your ship. I mean, you no harm." "Liar. Everyone means me harm." "Izul, please tell her." The ship's voice filled the room, warm and relieved. "My lady, he speaks the truth. He is the one I told you about in your dreams. The one who woke us both. Please, put down the blade. He is a friend." The woman's eyes flickered. Something passed across her face, too fast to read. She did not lower the blade. 12 years, she said. "You said 12 years. "Yes, my lady. You have been asleep for 12 years. The war is over. Your brothers are dead. The empire is divided among the generals. Much has changed. And this human?" She looked at Do-hyun with eyes that held no warmth. "Why is he here? What does he want?" "He wants nothing, my lady. He found us in a salvage yard. We were about to be cut apart for scrap. He asked to work on us instead. He has spent 6 months fixing every broken thing on this ship. He did not know you were alive until weeks into his work. When he learned the truth, he chose to wake you." Quote, "Why?" Izul paused. "He said you deserved to decide your own fate. That sleeping forever was not living." The blade trembled. The woman stared at Do-hyun as if he was a puzzle she could not solve. "You are human," she said. It was not a question. "Yes, humans are weak. Primitive. Your species has been part of the galaxy for less than a century. You are no one. Yes, and yet you spent 6 months of your life fixing a ship that was not yours, for a woman you had never met, expecting nothing in return?" Do-hyun met her eyes. "Not everyone does things for reward. Some people just hate seeing beautiful things stay broken." Something cracked in her expression. The blade lowered slowly. She stepped back, her shoulders dropping, her whole body seeming to shrink. She suddenly looked very young, and very tired, and very lost. 12 years, she whispered. Everyone I knew, everyone I loved. Gone. Not everyone. Izul is still here, and I am here, if you want me to stay. She laughed. It was a broken sound, without joy. Why would I want a human mechanic to stay? Because right now, I am the only person in the galaxy who is not trying to use you. That has to be worth something. The woman looked at him for a long moment. Then she turned and walked out of the room. She walked through the bridge, running her fingers along the clean panels and polished surfaces. She walked down the corridors, past lights that glowed warm and steady. She stopped at the observation deck and stood before the new viewport, staring at the stars. Do-hyun followed at a distance. He did not speak. He let her discover the ship on her own. She found the music player in the child's room. Her hand trembled as she picked it up and turned it on. A soft melody filled the air. Something from a time before war, before loss, before everything fell apart. She found the garden where new plants were growing, green and alive. She knelt beside them and touched the leaves with fingers that shook. She found the dining hall where Do-hyun had cleaned every chair and polished every surface until the room looked ready for guests again. Finally, she returned to the observation deck. Do-hyun was waiting there, standing by the door. "My daughter loved that music player," she said quietly. "She was 7 when she died. I thought everything of hers was lost. I am sorry. You fixed it. You fixed something that belonged to a child you never knew. A child who has been dead for 12 years. I thought you might want to hear her music again." The woman's face crumpled. For a moment, she was not an empress. She was just a mother who had lost everything, standing in a ship full of memories, facing a stranger who had somehow understood her grief. "Why?" she asked. Her voice broke on the word. "Why would you do all this?" Quote, Do-hyun thought about the question. He thought about all the answers he could give. Because the ship was beautiful. Because he hated waste. Because he had nothing better to do. All of them were true, but none of them were the whole truth. "Because you were alone," he said finally. "For 12 years, you were alone in the dark. I could not change what happened to you. I could not bring back your family or your empire, but I could make sure that when you woke up, you knew someone had been here. Someone had cared. Someone had wanted you to live." She stared at him. Tears ran down her face, the first tears she had cried in 12 years. "You are a strange human, Park Do-hyun. I know." She almost smiled. "My name is Yuna. Thank you for waking me." It was not forgiveness. It was not trust. It was just a beginning. A single crack in the wall she had built around herself. But it was enough. Outside the window, the stars burned on, and the veil of autumn waited patiently for whatever would come next. Word traveled fast in the salvage yard. By the second day, everyone knew that the veil of autumn had come back to life. By the third day, the rumors had reached every trader, smuggler, and spy on Veloth Station. By the end of the week, the whole sector knew that the lost flagship of the Solarian Empire was awake and powered. Do-hyun watched the change happen from inside the ship. Messages flooded the station's communication network. Ships began gathering in the space around Veloth, circling like animals waiting for prey. Some were bounty hunters. Some were treasure seekers, hoping to find Solarian artifacts worth fortunes. And some were something much worse. "They know," Yuna said. She stood on the bridge, watching the sensor display. Dozens of ships appeared as small lights on the screen, growing in number every hour. "The generals. They have sent their killers." "How can you tell?" "Those 3 ships near the station's north dock. Black hulls, no markings. Shadow Fleet. The personal assassins of General Kang. He was the one who gave the order to kill my family. He will not rest until I am dead." Do-hyun studied the ships. They looked ordinary to him, just dark shapes among all the others. But Yuna had grown up in a world of politics and murder. She could read danger the way he could read a broken engine. "Can we run?" "Not yet. The jump drive needs 8 more hours to fully charge. And even if we could run, they would follow. They have faster ships and more resources." Running only delays the end. Then we fight. Yuna looked at him with something that might have been surprise. You? A mechanic? What do you know about fighting? Nothing. But I know this ship. I know every corridor, every room, every system. If they want to take you, they will have to come through me first. She studied him for a long moment. You could leave. Take an escape pod. Get back to the station. They do not want you. They want me. You could walk away from this and live. No. Why not? Do-hyun thought about the question. He thought about the 6 months he had spent in these halls. The long nights of work. The quiet conversations with Isul. The moment when Yuna had finally said, "Thank you." He had given this ship a piece of his soul. He could not abandon it now. I spent 6 months putting this ship back together, he said. I am not going to watch someone tear it apart again. Before Yuna could respond, the station's communication system crackled to life. Attention, salvage vessel Veil of Autumn. This is Station Master Grath. You are ordered to remain in dock. Agents of the Galactic Authority wish to inspect your ship. Do not attempt to resist. Yuna's face hardened. Galactic Authority. That is a lie. Grath has been bribed. They are coming for us. How long do we have? Minutes. Maybe less. Do-hyun ran. He sprinted through the corridors he knew by heart, heading for the engineering section. Behind him, he heard the sound of the main airlock being forced open. Boots pounded on metal. Voices shouted in languages he did not understand. Isul, he called. Can you seal the inner doors? Already done, but they have cutting tools. The seals will not hold for long. Good enough. Buy me time. He reached the engineering section and began working. His hands moved faster than they ever had before, rerouting power, activating systems he had repaired but never tested. The ship had defenses. Isul had told him about them during the long months of work. Energy shields, point defense guns, emergency lockdown protocols. He had fixed them all, hoping they would never be needed. Now they were needed. The ship shuddered as the first attackers broke through an outer door. Do-hyun heard the sound of weapons fire somewhere above him. His heart pounded, but his hands stayed steady. Fear was a luxury he could not afford. Defense systems online, Isul reported. But I cannot fire inside the station without hitting innocent people. Then do not fire. Just make them think you will. The point defense turrets on the ship's hull swiveled toward the gathering ships outside. Warning lights flashed. Alarms blared across the station. The ships that had been closing in suddenly stopped, uncertain whether the ancient warship would actually shoot. Inside, Do-hyun activated the emergency lockdown. Heavy blast doors slammed shut throughout the ship, dividing it into sections. The attackers found themselves trapped in corridors that led nowhere, surrounded by walls they could not cut through. But there were too many of them. For every door that closed, they found another way around. For every section he sealed, they broke through somewhere else. They were professional killers, and they had done this before. Do-hyun ran back toward the bridge. He met Yuna halfway, her blade in her hand, blood on her dress. 3 of them found me, she said. Her voice was calm, but her hands were shaking. They will not find anyone else. The jump drive, 4 more hours. Too long. They both knew it. There is another way, Isul said. Her voice came from everywhere at once, filling the corridor. The secondary shuttle bay. It has a small, jump-capable vessel. It can only carry 2 people. If you leave now, you can escape before they break through. Yuna shook her head. No, I will not abandon this ship. It is all I have left. Then you will die here. Then I die. Her eyes found Do-hyun. But you should go. This is not your fight. You have already done more than anyone could ask. Do-hyun looked at her. He saw the fear she was trying to hide, the exhaustion, the grief. She had lost everything once. Now, she was about to lose everything again, and she was telling him to run, to save himself, because she had decided that her life was not worth saving. He had seen that look before. On workers who had given up hope, on refugees who had nothing left, on people who had forgotten what it felt like to matter. "No," he said. "This is foolish. You will die for nothing. Not for nothing. For you." He took her hand. It was the first time he had touched her. Her skin was cold. Her fingers thin and fragile. She looked at their joined hands with an expression he could not read. "You barely know me," she whispered. "I know you were alone for 12 years. I know you lost everyone you loved. I know you woke up in a universe that wanted you dead, and your first thought was to tell me to save myself." He squeezed her hand gently. "I know enough." Something broke behind them. Voices shouted. Footsteps pounded closer. "The armory," Yuna said suddenly. "This ship has an armory. I sealed it 12 years ago. The codes should still work." They ran together, hand in hand, through the ship that Do-hyun had rebuilt piece by piece. Behind them, the hunters closed in. Above them, the stars waited. The armory was hidden behind a false wall on the third deck. Yuna pressed her palm to a sensor, whispered a code in her native language, and the wall slid open. Inside were weapons that Do-hyun did not recognize. Elegant things, built for war but beautiful nonetheless. Yuna took a rifle from the wall. She checked it with practiced hands, movements that spoke of training she had never forgotten. "Can you shoot?" she asked. "No." She handed him a small device instead. "Shield generator. Strap it to your arm. When you press this button, it creates a barrier in front of you. It will stop 3 shots, maybe 4. After that, you die." "Wonderful," she almost smiled. "Stay behind me. Do what I say, and if I fall, run. Do not look back. Do not try to save me. Just run." "I already told you no." "I know." The first attackers came around the corner. Yuna raised her rifle and fired. The battle for the Veil of Autumn had begun. The corridors became a maze of fire and smoke. Yuna moved like something from an old story, graceful and deadly, her rifle singing death with every shot. Do-hyun stayed behind her, using the shield generator when enemies came from angles she could not cover. He was not a fighter. He was clumsy and slow and terrified. But he did not run. They fell back through the ship, section by section. The attackers were relentless. For every one that fell, 2 more took their place. They had numbers. They had weapons. They had the cold patience of professional killers who knew they would eventually win. "Engine room," Yuna gasped. Blood ran from a cut on her forehead. Her breath came in harsh gasps. "We can make our stand there. The doors are strongest." They ran. Behind them, the hunters followed. The engine room doors were the heaviest on the ship. Do-hyun had spent 3 weeks repairing them, reinforcing the locks, replacing the seals. When they slammed shut behind Yuna and him, the sound echoed like the closing of a tomb. "Iseul," Yuna called. "Status. 17 hostiles remain on board. They are gathering outside the engine room. They have brought heavy cutting equipment. Estimated breach time, 40 minutes. Jump drive status. 3 hours and 20 minutes remaining." Not enough time. Do-hyun leaned against a wall, trying to catch his breath. His arm ached where a weapon blast had grazed him. His shield generator had saved his life twice. It would not save him again. 18 Suspirus. 11111. Do-hyun leaned against a wall. "There has to be another way," he said. "Something we have not thought of." Iseul was quiet. When she spoke again, her voice was strange, hesitant, almost afraid. "There is one possibility, but you will not like it. Tell us." "The jump drive is charged enough for a single short jump. Perhaps 50 light years. Enough to reach neutral space. But the navigation systems are damaged. To make a safe jump, Someone would need to manually calibrate the FTL core. That requires physical access to the core chamber. Do-hyun straightened. I can do that. I repaired those systems. I know how they work. You do not understand. The core chamber is flooded with radiation when the drive is charging. The shielding I would need to protect you is offline. If you enter that chamber, you will die. Not immediately, but within hours. There is no cure. The room went silent. Do-hyun looked at the reactor, its blue light pulsing steadily, beautifully, like a beating heart. How long would I need inside? He asked. 10 minutes, 15 at most, and that would get us out of here? Both of us? The whole ship? Yes. If you succeed, we jump to safety. Yuna grabbed his arm. Her grip was painful, desperate. No. Absolutely not. I forbid it. You cannot forbid me. You are not my empress. I am telling you as a person. As someone who watched you work for 6 months. As someone who woke up because you believed she deserved to live. You do not get to throw away your life. Not for this. Not for me. Do-hyun looked at her. Her eyes were bright with tears she refused to let fall. Her hand trembled where it held his arm. She was afraid. Not of death. She had faced death many times. She was afraid of losing him. Yuna, he said softly. Listen to me. I am a mechanic. I fix things. That is what I do. That is all I have ever done. And right now, the only way to fix this situation is for me to walk into that chamber. There has to be another way. There is not. Isuel would have told us. If there was. Not. The ship shuddered. Outside the door, the sound of cutting equipment filled the air. The hunters were breaking through. Do-hyun took Yuna's hand and gently removed it from his arm. He held it between both of his, feeling how cold and small it was. You spent 12 years alone, he said. Frozen in the dark. Waiting for someone who never came. I will not let you go back to that. I will not let them kill you. Not when I can stop it. Why? The word came out broken. Why do you care so much? I am nothing to you. A stranger. A woman from a dead empire. Why would you die for me? He smiled. It was a sad smile, but genuine. Because you are not nothing. Because when I look at you, I see someone who deserved better than what the universe gave her. Someone who lost everything and kept going anyway. Someone worth saving. He squeezed her hand. And because in 6 months, you are the first person who ever made me feel like I mattered. You matter. Then live. That is all I ask. Live, and remember me. He let go of her hand and turned toward the core chamber. The door was small, set into the wall beside the main reactor. Behind him, he heard Yuna making a sound that was not quite a sob. Do-hyun. He stopped. He did not turn around. Thank you, she said. For everything. For the ship. For the music player. For the garden. For believing I was worth waking up. Her voice cracked. I will not forget. I promise. He nodded once. Then he reached for the door. It opened. And then Yuna's hand grabbed his shoulder and spun him around. She kissed him. It was fierce and desperate, and tasted like tears. Her hands gripped his face, holding him close. For one perfect moment, the universe disappeared. There was only her warmth, her breath, the beating of her heart against his chest. Then she pulled back. I am sorry, she said. Before he could speak, before he could move, she pressed something into his palm and shoved him backward. He stumbled, caught off balance. The core chamber door slammed shut between them, but it had slammed shut with her on the other side. Yuna, no. He pounded on the door. It would not open. Through the small window, he could see her moving toward the core, her white dress glowing in the blue light. Isuel, open this door. I cannot. She has activated the emergency seal. Only the captain can release it. Yuna. Stop. You do not have to do this. Her voice came through the intercom, calm and steady. You were wrong, Do-hyun. You are not the only one who can fix things. And I am not going to let you die for me. Not when you showed me there are still good people in the universe. Please, Isul. When I finish the calibration, jump immediately. Do not wait. Do not hesitate. Get him somewhere safe. Yes, my lady. The core began to glow brighter. Yuna worked at the control panel, her hands moving with the speed of someone who had nothing left to lose. The radiation meters on the wall climbed higher and higher. Do-hyun pressed his hand against the glass. On the other side, Yuna paused. She looked back at him, smiled once, and returned to her work. The cutting equipment broke through the engine room door. Jump drive ready, Isul announced. Calibration complete. Jump now. The universe turned inside out. When reality returned, the veil of autumn was floating in empty space. 50 light-years from Veloth, surrounded by nothing but stars and silence. And in the core chamber, Empress Yuna lay still on the floor, her white dress stained with light, her breath coming slow and shallow. She was alive. Barely, but she was alive. The medical bay had survived the battle without damage. Do-hyun carried Yuna there himself, his arms aching, his heart pounding. She weighed almost nothing. He could feel her bones through her skin, sharp and fragile. He laid her on the healing bed and watched the machines come to life. Blue light washed over her body. Screens filled with numbers and diagrams he did not understand. All he could do was wait. Will she live? He asked. Isul's voice was soft. The radiation damage is severe. Her cellular structure has been compromised. In a normal medical facility, she would die within hours. But this is not a normal medical facility. No. This is a Solarian royal ship. Our medical technology was centuries ahead of anything else in the galaxy. The healing bed is working to repair the damage at the cellular level. It will take time. Days, perhaps weeks. But if the treatment is not interrupted, she will survive. Do-hyun sat down on the floor beside the bed. His legs would not hold him anymore. The past hours had taken everything he had. She saved me, he said. She pushed me out and took my place. Yes. Why? She barely knows me. Isul was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice held something that sounded almost like wonder. I have known Yuna since she was a child. I watched her grow from a princess into an empress. I saw her face war and betrayal and loss. In all that time, she never put anyone else before herself. Not because she was selfish, because she was never allowed to be. The Empire needed her to be strong, to be a symbol, to survive no matter the cost. And now, for the first time, she chose someone else. She looked at you and decided that your life was worth more than hers. That is not something the old Yuna would have done. You changed her, Do-hyun. In 6 months, you showed her something she had forgotten. That love does not have to be about power or survival. That sometimes it can just be about caring for someone without expecting anything in return. Do-hyun looked at Yuna's face. Even unconscious, even pale and wounded, she was beautiful. But it was not her beauty that moved him. It was the memory of her smile, the sound of her laugh, the way she had looked at him in that final moment, as if he was the most precious thing in the universe. I did not mean to fall in love with her, he said quietly. I know. That is why it matters. He stayed by her side, hour after hour, day after day. He ate when Isul told him to eat. He slept when exhaustion forced him to close his eyes. But he always woke up in the same place, sitting on the floor beside the healing bed, watching the blue light do its work. On the 3rd day, her fingers moved. On the 5th day, her eyes opened. She looked at the ceiling first, confused. Then she turned her head and saw Do-hyun. His face was unshaven. His eyes were red from lack of sleep. He looked like a man who had aged 10 years in a week. "You are still here," she whispered. "Where else would I be?" She tried to smile. It was weak, but it was real. "I thought I told Isul to take you somewhere safe." "She did. She took me here." "With you. That is not what I meant." "I know. I did not care." She closed her eyes. For a moment, he thought she had fallen asleep again. Then she spoke, her voice so soft he had to lean close to hear. "I am sorry. For what I did. For pushing you away. You saved my life. I almost died. Yes. And I have been very angry about that." He reached out and took her hand. It was warmer now. Stronger. "Do not ever do something like that again. I make no promises." He laughed. It was a strange sound in the quiet room. Unexpected and welcome. She opened her eyes and looked at him. And for the first time, there was no wall between them. No suspicion. No fear. Just two people who had saved each other, holding hands in the light of distant stars. The weeks that followed were slow and quiet. Yuna recovered gradually, spending more time each day out of the healing bed. She walked the corridors of her ship, rediscovering the home she had lost. She sat in the garden Do-hyun had planted and watched the new flowers bloom. She played her daughter's music and cried. And when Do-hyun found her, she let him hold her without pushing away. They talked. About everything. About nothing. About the past and the future and all the things they hoped for. Yuna told him about her family, her empire, the war that had destroyed everything she loved. Do-hyun told her about Earth, about his childhood, about the dreams he had given up when he realized the galaxy did not care about humans. "I want to rebuild," Yuna said one evening. They were sitting in the observation deck, watching the stars drift by. The ship was moving slowly through neutral space, avoiding major trade routes, staying hidden. Not the Empire. That is gone. But something new. Something better. What kind of something? I do not know yet. A place where people matter more than power. Where no one has to be alone. Where a human mechanic can be worth as much as an empress. She looked at him. "Will you help me? I am not a leader. I do not know anything about politics or war. I am not asking for a politician or a general. I am asking for someone who will tell me the truth. Someone who will remind me why it matters. Someone who will fix things when they break." She reached out and took his hand. Do-hyun looked at her hand in his. He thought about everything that had happened. The salvage yard. The dead ship. The sleeping queen. The battle. The sacrifice. All of it leading to this moment. To this question. "There is one condition," he said. "Name it. No more sacrificing yourself. No more pushing me away. If we do this, we do it together. As equals. As partners." He squeezed her hand. "As whatever we are becoming." Yuna smiled. It was a real smile. Warm and bright. The kind he had never seen on her face before. "Partners," she said. "I like that." She pulled him closer. He went willingly. And there, in the light of 1,000 stars, they sealed their promise with a kiss. The veil of autumn sailed on through the endless dark. But it was not empty anymore. Its halls were filled with warmth and light, and the sound of two people building something new. Across the galaxy, the generals who had destroyed the Solarian Empire began to hear rumors. The lost Empress had returned. At her side walked a human, not a soldier or a noble, but a mechanic, a man from a species they had dismissed as primitive and weak. The stories spread. The legends grew. People whispered about the ship that had come back from the dead, about the queen who had survived 12 years of frozen sleep, about the human who had woken her with nothing but patience and love. And in the quiet places of the universe, among the refugees and the outcasts, and the forgotten. Hope began to take root. Because if a human mechanic could save an empress, if a broken ship could fly again, if love could bloom in the darkest places, then maybe anything was possible. Maybe even the future. Do-hyun stood at the observation deck window, watching the stars. Yuna came to stand beside him. She slipped her hand into his, and he held it tight. "Ready?" she asked. "No," he said honestly. "But I will figure it out as I go. That is what I do." End quote. She laughed. It was the most beautiful sound he had ever heard. "Then let us begin." The veil of autumn turned toward the horizon, toward new worlds and new challenges and new possibilities. And somewhere behind them, the galaxy watched and wondered what would happen when humanity's gift finally found a place to grow.